l'altra banda per confirmar-nos que efectivament tot està al seu lloc. Deixo de sentir àudio en aquests moments. Ara torno a sentir àudio també. Doncs això, seguim provant, qualsevol cosa que us faci falta, jo em vaig inventant qualsevol tipus de diàleg que puguem treure en aquests moments. Fantàstic equip que tinc davant meu, l'Helena a l'esquerra, com sempre, present i pendent de tot el que hi ha en aquests moments al circuit de Paul Ricard, el Marçal aguantant la càmera amb una fortalesa única i que sabem que ens mantindrà amb seguretat i confiança durant la totalitat de la cursa que tindrem per davant. I tot el cap de setmana, fins i tot. Provant, estic aquí, no ens deixen sortir, estem ara mateix atrapats en una espècie de limbo, en aquest passadís que podríem comparar amb un purgatori carrerístic. He canviat jo un moment. Bé. I doncs res, esperem que acabi la cursa que tenim ara mateix encara a pista i quan acabi doncs podrem... Tot bé? Jo ara mateix no estic sentint. Si està parlant no el sento. Prova ara, que jo crec que et sentiré bé. Ara sí, meravellós. Som-hi. Vale.
At Portimao, Jarama and Aragon, we proved what the brand new Dallara 326 can do in competition. Now we're ready for the full season of the EUROCUP-3 Championship, kicking off here at the Circuit Paul Ricard in Le Castellet. What a fantastic chance for this championship to get under starters' orders here in France. It's going to be a fantastic season, we already know, based on the evidence of the Spanish Winter Championship a few weeks ago, ending in the favour of the United Arab Emirates star from Dubai, Kiano Al-Azari. Well, that form has continued here into qualifying. He's been able to put his car into pole position amongst the rivals that he is likely to be duelling with for the entirety of this championship. René Lammers, James Igotzi and Alex Powell, all in close proximity as we get this new championship underway here at Paul Ricard. The new technology of this fantastic car and the phenomenal designing work that has been put into from Dallara, from Toms, from Engine 101 and all the boys and girls at Cosworth as well has definitely given us a race car that we can be excited by. All of the battles and wheel-to-wheel duels that we saw in the early part of the season in the Spanish Winter Championship definitely giving us the key to what should be a phenomenally exciting championship. Now we're going to see what it will be like in main body of competition. I'm Jake Sanson here in the commentary box position. Down in the pit lane, as ever, is my friend and colleague Alex Garcia, who's been getting all the tasty nuggets of knowledge and information heading into this first race weekend of the championship. Alex, you're in for a good one this weekend as far as the weather is concerned. It is glorious. Riviera sunshine on lane.
Hello, Jake. So happy to hear from you again. And yes, we are so happy because coming into this week, we had been told and we had heard, and the teams had heard, that it was expected to rain both today and tomorrow. And oh my word, this is beach weather. And you know, what's better for that than a good set of racing? Just remember, we have 3 races this weekend. Race 1 and a sprint race today, race 2 tomorrow. So I think that's a perfect plan.
So tell us a little bit about what we can expect to see from this first race of the championship. It's going to be an interesting one with the big 4 contenders coming straight out of the blocks and putting themselves into the top 4 positions. But there are a few key interesting factors here. We've got the Brazilians Heiter de Daniel and Alcifel Manito really starting to put on a show. But it's going to be a tough race too for Patrick Hosenroder going from the back of the grid.
Exactly. I mean, we have a lot of elements that we have to pay attention to. As you said, probably the biggest 4 candidates are on the top 4. But I want to direct our attentions as well to Gianmarco Pradel, who did so well in the Spanish Winter Championship and who is, of course, the pole sitter for race 2 tomorrow. We know that he's also in a good position today. He will have something to say tomorrow. That means that the amount of potential candidates for the victory is pretty high this weekend. Of course, we're just getting started, so everyone's starting from the same point, 0 points, and that means that nobody's at a disadvantage yet. Now, speaking about disadvantages or advantages, I think one of the most interesting things I've seen here this weekend so far, or I should say yesterday and Friday, is that the differences between drivers in terms of lap times have been very, very small. And considering that this is a long track, this is good, because it means that the differences should be even tighter if we had a shorter circuit. Which means that we have potentially a great fight in our hands. Just 4 thousandths of a second between the first 2 drivers, that first row, shared between Kiano Al-Azari and René Lammers, who of course should be 2 of the big protagonists. We know that they know each other well enough from the Spanish Winter Championship, so I think we're in for a treat today.
And we certainly know, based on what we saw in those first 3 weekends of the season in February and March, just how exciting and dynamic this race car is going to give us in terms of wheel-to-wheel freneticism. The battles were intense in the Spanish Winter Championship, and we saw some fantastic duels for position. At Paul Ricard, this place is Slipstream City, so we could see a lot of changes for position.
This is something that the drivers are talking about, and this is something that they have to keep in mind, and they are keeping in mind. Not only following each other in dirty air has been more possible, more attainable than last year, but also the slipstream is really, really powerful. That means that just following another car is possible in the trickiest part, but in those parts where you want the car ahead to pull you in, it does pull you in. So I can imagine those, those straight line, high-speed duels that we will see in the the Mistral Straight should be pretty exciting, especially because we have all those chicanes cutting that straight and giving us some good places for overtaking. Of course, good places to block your rivals as well. But I think Paul Ricard in general has shown that it is a good place for fighting. Keep an eye as well, all the way that at the end of the main straight, that first chicane, that has historically been a good spot for overtaking in this kind of level. It was with the old machine, and I'm sure with the new one, we're going to see it for sure.
Well, I spent a bit of time this week on my simulator at home playing around with the Dallara on the Paul Ricard circuit. It's a very low grip circuit, this one, when you haven't put a lot of rubber down. We are sharing the weekend with the European Le Mans Series, which will certainly help in terms of traction on the circuit. But this place gets very windy at the best of times. So this is going to be one of those situations where drivers will find, I guess, in terms of rotation on the steering wheel, a little bit too much throttle. The back end will kick out. We'll probably see a couple of drivers spinning here and there. Whether it'll happen in races or not is yet to be determined. But we've got so many drivers trying to fight their way back up through the field here, Alex. The likes of Enzo Timbernichgul, we've got Thomas Strauven out of position, Patrick Hosenroder, even Gianmarco Pradell will be disappointed to be down as low as P8 on the grid. We could see quite a few drivers trying to fight their way back. Does the indication that the drivers and teams have given you suggest that that'll be fairly straightforward, or are there going to be some challenges along the way?
Up a very, very interesting topic, which is the fact that we're sharing the track this weekend with the European Le Mans Series. As you know, there are several classes in that category. There's also other categories that are racing separately, but still on the same weekend. And they do not necessarily have the exact racing lines as we do with our single-seaters. And that, of course, means that it will not be rubbered in the same way everywhere. Plus, not all the tires are born equal, not all the rubber is born equal, and not all of it gives you the exact same amount of grip. So all of these things drivers have to keep in mind. The biggest example of this is, as you well know, just how the Porsche Super Cup drivers always struggle on that second lap after a Formula 1 session. This is relatively similar. We have different classes, and the grip is going to change depending on what lines the other machines have been doing. So this is something that the teams and drivers are keeping in mind. It shouldn't affect them too much, but if you're doing an overtake, you're doing a move on the outside, you're doing a move on the inside, all those things are tiny little details that are going to make the difference if you know them well.
Well, as you can see on your screens, folks, we're just waiting for the previous session on the road to finish up. The closing stages of that just getting underway now, so it's a slight delay in getting the cars out onto the circuit. But that does give us a little bit of time to talk about some of the things that have changed from the Spanish Winter Championship to here in the EuroCup-3 main championship. The car, of course, is still the new Dallara 326. Drivers are still getting used to them, but there are some names that we didn't have in the off-season, particularly Linus Lundqvist. Now, that is a very dramatic driver to add to this competition. Double season campaigner in IndyCars, of course, with the Chip Ganassi team in 2024, Linus Lundqvist, which puts me in mind of the rather sad news, sadly, that we had this morning of the passing of the great Alessandro Zanardi, who, of course, was a double IndyCar champion with the Ganassi fold. So we obviously send all of our best wishes and all of our love and thoughts to not just the IndyCar community, but to Zanardi and his family in general. But it's fascinating to have Linus Lundqvist in the championship this weekend. 27 years of age, was not racing last season. He's obviously been in a consultancy role this weekend as driver. finding himself down in 18th position. This is the kind of thing that really demoralises a seasoned campaign driver. That'll be unfortunate for Linus, but if anyone's going to carve their way through the field and challenge the opposition, it's going to be the Swede.
It is, I think, for many of the drivers here, it has been a very motivating element to add. I know, of course, and we have no problem with addressing this as well, because we have to. There have been some drivers and teams that have not necessarily been too excited about it. Naturally, since we're talking about a driver coming straight from a professional category into a feeder series. But at the end of the day, this is a category in which an IndyCar driver can race. And to be honest, we are very, very excited to have that, because to have a professional driver here, it is a fantastic benchmark for all these youngsters who want to carve their path in the world of motorsports. And, you know, I would wish to see him a little bit further up so that he can use that experience to fight with the top dogs here. But of course, it also shows the high level of competition that we have in EUROCUP-3, both from, let's say, veteran drivers who are mostly on the second seasons and the rookies. And this, to me, this just shows how much talent there is in here, and it makes it exciting. But I do hope that if he continues to be around our paddock, that he will be little by little getting more to grips with his car, which is not an easy car by any means of the imagination, and that he can be a little bit closer to the top, because I think having an IndyCar driver, or former IndyCar driver I should say, is really, really exciting. Also, Jake, thank you very much for mentioning that sad news about Alex Zanardi, because I think there's no motorsport fan who knows about the Italian who isn't. I would say the world is a little bit less happy today, because he has been such a huge inspiration for, I think, anybody who likes sport, not just motorsports.
So true. I will always consider his gold medals in the Paralympic Games several times over even higher than his achievements on the motorsport circuits of IndyCar and the World Touring Car Championship. We send all of our best wishes and respects to the family and the motorsport community in a very sad time. Grazie tutti, Alessandro. We've also got some other great drivers making their debuts in EuroCup-3 this weekend. We have Andre Rodriguez, the American star from Colorado. He'll be racing for GRS this season, as will Ryan Caretti, the Thai who holds a French license. Now, he's going to be an interesting one to watch out for. He's already put on some great performances in the F4 French Championship, as has Edouard Borgna, the new driver for Drivex. So we've got some new faces in the paddock for this weekend. They're definitely going to find it tough, not just being rookies, but being several weeks behind the other drivers in terms of their path to development. But the good news for all of them is that none of the new faces here this weekend are going to be starting on the back row of the grid.
And this shows that they have done a good job in preparing this start of the season, despite, as you've said, Jake, not being there, not just for the Spanish Winter Championship, but also less testing time. And we know, especially with a new car, especially with the Dallara 326, how tricky it is to make it work as much as, as well as you can. You've been on the simulator this week, so you know it very well. It is a very demanding car. It is very sensitive to driver inputs. If you use the right inputs, you can be very quick, but it is very easy. You're just out of line a little bit, and it's almost as if the car wants to kick you out, like a tiny, like a wild horse that doesn't want you to ride it.
It's so true. I've actually been trying to compare it this week by doing the same circuit with different cars and then jumping back into the Dallara. It is very twitchy. It's a very snappy car, but it's designed that way. What it's been basically been utilized for is to improve car control. It's to improve tenacity, to improve the intelligence, the raw skills of the driver, and of course patience is such an important asset to a driver at this level. If you want to jump into the Formula One weekend, you've got to make sure that all of those skills are applied the correct way. And so yes, the car is very responsive, it is very twitchy, and it has got a wild behavior pattern to it, but that's how you tame it. You've got to get the understanding of just how delicate you've got to be on the steering, how smooth you've got to be on the throttle, and how precise you've got to be on the brake pedal. It's not an easy car to tame, but the drivers that can get on top of it, that will be running in the top 5 all the way through the season, we know that they're going to be well prepared and ready to take on the Grand Prix weekend.
And you have to remember, Jake, as well, that as opposed to our usual race weekends, especially those that we've seen in the Spanish Winter Championship, or some of those that we will see after this weekend here in Port Ricard, we have had the 2 qualifying sessions back to back. So whereas in a normal weekend, you would have had that first race to understand the car a little bit more. So if, let's say, things didn't go your way in qualifying 1 and race 1, you still had some time to think about how to change things for race 2 and qualify in a good position. Qualifying's already done, so drivers already know where they're starting. Yes, you can fix things for race 2, but your starting position has already been decided. So that changes the dynamic a little bit. We have seen some drivers who have struggled a little bit more than they would have liked, and the only thing they can do is just come back from their position. They cannot fix their starting position, which is something to consider, to keep in mind. Also, of course, we've mentioned it before, but it is good to mention just now as we're starting the season, we are going to have that sprint race on 3 racing weekends this season here in Port Ricard, as well as Imola later down the season, and Silverstone in the UK. And of course, that will mean that on those weekends we have 1 extra race, and that extra race will have that same regulation as the Spanish Winter Championship, that top 12 from qualifying 1 reverse order. So that'll mean that in this case, Enzo Tarmanicul will be the driver starting from pole position on the second of the races that we'll have today. Another thing to keep in mind, we know that drivers like to make as many laps as possible, so that gives us a little bit more of a chance to enjoy them racing, which is also a nice result of that.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating narrative over the course of the weekend to have this additional race, the sprint race as it were. Race 1 today, race 2 tomorrow, and as you mentioned, sprint race splitting them up. The cars are now exiting pit lane and heading their way down to the start-finish straight itself. We can see the new Dallara Stradale safety car that's going to be a real staple of this 2026 season. Hopefully we won't need to see it out on the circuit too many times over the course of the weekend, but we know certainly it's going to be a fantastic bit of kit. This was designed with Dallara's cooperation for safety car usage to increase the velocity of the safety car heading the field, to help the teams and the drivers to generate that tyre temperature under safety car to make it a little bit easier on the restart. And we saw that work in very exciting fashion in the F4 Spanish Championship season opener that we had in Valencia last month. So that was really exciting to see it under starters orders. Thank you to everybody for keeping their comments and their messages coming in. We know that you're all cheering for your own individual superstars and your own favourite races and race teams. It is going to be fascinating to see how things go in this first race of the season. 30 minutes plus 1 lap, of course, from the front of the grid, Keanu Alazari, all the way back to Patrick Hosenroder at the back of the field. Very close and very even indeed. A few drivers will obviously be trying to make big impacts on this weekend. You often get some stand-up performances at this level because you know roughly what the form book is going to be, but drivers are learning and understanding and unlocking pace and speed at different stages of their driving career. And so it's fabulous to see the Palou teammates of James Zagotzi really starting to step up to the plate now and get a similar sort of pace to James, because we've got Rafael Parrard in P6, we've got Haida de Lagnol in P7. It's wonderful as well to see our very own Lightning McQueen, Alcifel Manetto, who's in car number 8, running in the top 10. So that'll be really exciting to see how those guys get on.
Exactly, and I think, Jake, one of the coolest bits of news from this qualifying session is that we have 4 different teams in the 4 first places and the first 2 rows of the grid, and we have 5 teams in the top 11. That means we have a good variety of drivers, a good variety of team efforts in here, which, as you know, it hasn't always been the case. We know that the classic duel here in EUROCUP-3, as well as in the younger sister Spanish Formula 4 Championship, it is usually the Campos Griffin Core and MP Motorsport duel. But we have a few extra guests here in the form of Hightech, of course, in the form of Palou, and potentially we might have some double Rs and some Drivix machines being able to join the fray, which I think is great, because the more teams we have in here, the more excitement we're sure to have. And having those 4 teams in those 4 first places just shows that basically and fundamentally there are at least 4 squads that have found what clicks here, and that is the best news that we have so far.
It certainly is. I mean, any motorsport championship in the world that can push to 4 different teams in the top 4 places is obviously hitting the targets for competition. What'll be interesting as well to see how much progress people can make from their positions. Gianmarco Bradell flying the flag for Australia in P8. He'll obviously want to make an impact. We know, of course, Enzo Tarvanitschka will start the sprint race from P1, but he'll want to get as many points on the board as possible. So from P12, he's got a bit of work to do, as have a few of the other rookies. Chris Alfagali and Filippo Fiorentino, of course, leading the charge for Drivex. Thomas Strauven, I think he'll be disappointed being down in 14th place in his Griffin Core car. And of course, Stefan Bostanjev for High-Tech, who did that fantastic job in the reverse grid race earlier in the season in the Spanish Winter Championship. He'll want to be closer to Chiano Alazzari as the season progresses. But there are so many variables here and so many opportunities for these drivers to really kick on a pace. It's very difficult to know what's going to happen at the front of the field, but it's even harder to predict who's going to have the pace in the middle of the field. Plus, how are those tyres going to cope over the course of the race? Because this is the first time we've ever had a race with this car at these temperatures in this part of the season. Of course, we had the 3 weekends in the Spanish Winter Championship, but the temperatures were considerably lower than they are now. The track temperature is currently at 37 degrees Celsius. We never got anything as high as that in the Winter Championship.
Exactly. It is true that the Spanish Winter Championship had some, shall we say, more spring-esque kind of temperatures than winter-ish, but it's still not as hot as it is here, or as warm, I should say, which means that for these teams and drivers, it is the first time that they are running these cars in these temperatures on race conditions. The drivers in the middle of the pack, they do have a tough job in recovering. I am excited to see what happens with Enzo Tarvanitschka. We know that if he has a good race car, and when I say race car, I mean a car for a race and not specifically the idea of a racing car. If he has a good car for these specific conditions, he might be able to recover. He's very good at recovering races. We've seen him do 15 to 16 to 17 overtakes in a single race. So starting from 12, there's nothing that he couldn't potentially do. But as you've said, Jake, there's other drivers, Stefan Bostanjev, Thomas Strauven, guys who we know can be quick. And if they have managed to sort things out from yesterday until today, why not? And that's what makes it exciting. We know that there's a few guys at the front who are quick. Those are without a doubt going to be protagonists. But what if we have 3, 4, 5, 6 more drivers who could fight for the win? Can you imagine having in Paul Ricard 3 wide on some of the spots? I look forward to this, that's for sure.
I've seen it in some championships in the past on this circuit before, in the days when I used to do the GT World Challenge, and certainly it's likely to happen again today if everything goes according to plan. Another name I want to bring up, Alex, because it's familiar to both of us, that's worth keeping an eye on, is the Serbian Andrej Petrovic. Of course, he was there during the Spanish Winter Championship in the F4 category and finished 3rd in that championship after a fantastic end to the season at Aragon. But he was there for the F4 Spanish season opener as well at Valencia, and we could see that he already had his mindset 1 foot out the door. Jumping into the EUROCUP-3 Dallara 326 for the first time, it'll be fascinating to see what the Serbian can do in his first race weekend of the campaign. Not the least because we already know he's a winner in the F4 car. Can he do it again this season in the EUROCUP-3?
Exactly, and I mean, it is a tough job to jump into a higher car when the rest of the rivals have had a lot more, racing time with it. They have had a lot more testing time with it, and he's not necessarily in one of the most competitive squads of the championship. And even then, he's done a good job. And we know that he can be quick on some conditions when the things are right. We know that if he has a good qualifying session that puts him in a decent position for the sprint race, he is definitely a threat there. So it is someone to keep an eye on. Maybe not for the win this weekend, that's for sure. But it is one of those drivers that you want to see how they progress, because throughout the season he could have something to say. He was good in the Spanish Winter Championship, as you were recalling, and I think we've seen him grow quite a bit in the last year and a half.
Yes, indeed. The 1 minute board going up. Final predictions then, Alex. Chiano Alazzari was able to do some very spectacular things in the Spanish Winter Championship. Now that the temperatures have gone up by at least 5 to 10 degrees Celsius here in France compared to what it was in Spain and Portugal in the winter season, will he still be able to have that same level of authority, or will the likes of René Lammers, James Igozzi and even the former Jamaican sensation, now of course running the Star Spangled Banner, Alex Powell, the Miami Heat man himself. Will they be able to get on terms with Keanu in this first race of the year?
That's a tricky question, Jake, because the differences are so tight. I'm going to play it safe and say that I think the top 3 drivers are going to still be in the podium when the race is over. Now, as for the order, I don't know. I'm just going to say we're going to enjoy the fight. That's all I can say for sure. The rest is up for the racing gods to decide.
Certainly is. The engine revs rise. Thanks, Alex. We'll get back underway very soon indeed with you down in pit lane, I'm sure. Thank you. So the drivers making their way off the starting line as per to warm up the tyres and brakes to the optimum temperature. And now it really is time for the season to get underway in EUROCUP-3 2026. All of the weight, all of the excitement and anticipation for this new Dallara 326 car, with all of its sensational engineering prowess from Toms, from Engine 101, from Cosworth. It's all come to this moment in the season as we get underway on the circuit Paul Ricard. It's going to be a busy calendar season, of course, in 2026. Plenty of great races to cover in the championship. The Algarve in Portimao in June, then back to Imola and Monza, with a race to be determined in August still. Then Silverstone, then the Hungaroring, and then in November we will decide our EuroCup-3 champion for 2026 at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya in Montmeló. And we'll see who can follow in the footsteps of the previous champions of EuroCup-3. It's certainly been a sensational battle over the last couple of seasons. Matteo Colnaghi, of course, won the championship last season in spectacular fashion and then stepped up into the world of the Grand Prix paddock. Before then, of course, in 2024, we had the Singaporean Christian Ho, and the year before, the very first season, was Esteban Masson, who is going to be the next champion of EuroCup-3. The fight for that title begins here and now. We can talk you through the starting grid in its entirety for the 30 drivers. Keanu Al-Azari for High-Tech going on pole position. Alongside him on the grid will be the Dutchman René Lammers in the MP Motorsport car. Then James Zagotzi for Palau in third on the grid alongside Alex Powell for Griffincorp. Ian Eichmans for MP is P5 alongside Rafael Parade of Palau in P6. Then Heiter Delagnol, his teammate, in 7th position. The Brazilian alongside the Australian, Gianmarco Pradel, in 8th place. 9th on the grid for the Argentine, Santino Panetta in the High-Tech car. Alcifel Maneto for Brazil, the number 8 in the MP Motorsport. 7th rookie and 11th on the grid, Chris Alfagali for the Drivex team, alongside the Thai Enzo Tarvanitschgul for Griffincorp. Then it's Filippo Fiorentino, the Drivex driver, alongside the Belgian Thomas Strauben. 15th on the grid for Stefan Bostenjev in the High-Tech alongside his teammate Gino Trapper. Then it is the Pole Kasper Stuka alongside Linus Lundqvist, the Swedish driver for Double R. Then Luca Vizzarono in the TC racing car for Thibaut Courtois. Then it is Bart Harrison, the British driver for Double R, in front of the Angolan Lorenzo Campos, the Serbian Andrej Petrovic, the French Thai Ryan Caretti, the Greek Stylianos Kolovos, the Philippines youngster Bianca Bustamante alongside the American Andre Rodriguez, then Eduard Borja, Renzo Barboy, Benjamin Beckley and Patrick Hosenroder having to go from the back of the grid in car number 5 in the Griffincorp. And there is Benjamin Beckley. The car right behind him should be Patrick Hosenroder's car. The Griffincorp, there it is. So I just wanted to make sure he was going to take the start. And it does look as though all 30 cars of this brand new era for the 4th season of EuroCup-3 with this fantastic machine, the Dallara 326. Boy, are you in for a treat with this car. If you didn't manage to catch us in the Spanish Winter Championship at Portimao, at Jarama and at Aragon, we certainly had a fantastic season that went down to the wire in the final weekend, and it was Keanu Al-Azari who became champion in the pink High-Tech in the BWT Alpine colours. Will he convert this season into a championship title in the main event? He started with pole position. As we get the green flag, it's time to answer all of those questions in the first race of EuroCup-3 2026. Let's race at Paul Ricard. Keanu Al-Azari's not moved. Keanu Al-Azari is stalled from pole position. I can't believe it. Now he's got going but he's down at the back of the field, and that's René Lammers who gets into the first corner in first place. Igotzi going wheel to wheel with Alex Powell, who goes round the outside and hooks it up for second position through the right-hander. So it's Lammers from Powell and Igotzi as Gianno Alazzari has to fight his way through the field after stalling initially on the grid. He now rejoins in the middle of the pack, but what a disaster for Gianno Alazzari, the new champion of the Spanish Winter Championship in EUROCUP-3, now has to fight his way through. There he is in the background, so it really is open season in the first race of 2026. So on to the back straight, and René Lammers is already trying to jog away from the pack. Ian Eichmans has made a fantastic start as well, trying to get himself into the top three. But it is René Lammers who leads, and already James Igotzi is hustling Alex Powell as they get down to the chicane, into the first big point on the circuit where they're going to conflagrate, and Alex Powell has held his nerve. He's not going to back down from it as he holds on. So Alex Powell running in second place in front of Igotzi, Eichmans, Perard, then it is Pradel, Delaniol, Tarnva, Nitschkul already up 4 places, then Bonetta, Elfagali, Feldman, Strauman, Fiorentino and Bostonjev, with Gianno Alazzari all the way back in 24th behind Patrick Hosenroder, who's already made up 6 places. This is the part of the course where things get really tricky. The car really wants to snap away from you on this part of the course. Side by side, that's Pradel and Perard having a great duel. Oh, and there's contact further back. One car went up in the air, manages to rejoin, but it definitely looks as though that could be a puncture. They've not got far to return back to the pits, but you can see drivers really scrabbling for grip and scrabbling to hold on to each other there, side by side for position. That's Vizaronu going wheel to wheel with Ryan Caretti. So they're still having a great duel as they come through on the far side of the course into the final turn. The mountain ranges in the background are the gateway to the Alps, and as the drivers run down the main straight at the end of the first lap, it's Lammers, Igotzi, Powell, Eichmans, Pradel, Perard, Delaniol, Panetta, Tarnva, Nitschkul and Thomas Strauman. Well, it certainly doesn't look like we need the safety car anytime yet. Up on the inside line, that's going to be tight between Drivex and Griffincore. That's Elfagali trying to get his move on Strauman, I believe. Whoa, big slide out of the second corner there from Vizaronu. The Romanian very nearly getting it crossed up. And that's what we're talking about when the back end kicks out. Yellow flags around the course already. That's in the first sector, I do believe. So someone's gone off in the first chicane. I think it's Renzo Barboy. Renzo Barboy in the TC racing car, already having an issue and coming through at the back. He has got going again though, so it doesn't look like we need the safety car. We're going to see a replay of something though. That's what happened. It is a big slide from Renzo Barboy. And this is what happened a little bit further behind them. That was a bit of airborne contact. Couldn't make out who it was at the distance, unfortunately. Our zoom lenses are not quite Formula 1 grade, but we can still point out how tricky it's going to be over the course of this race, because everybody really putting on an absolute stonker of a show right now. Up through the right-hander, big switch as they come through. That is the Griffincore by Campos and Patrick Hosenroder trying to make progress, diving up the inside, never going to get through on Elfagali. He's not going to leave that much space. That's Kasper Stucker and Alcy Feldman trying to get on terms with the Superpole, but unfortunately Stucker is not going to play ball with them for the moment. And it's Bostonjev going backwards. Bostonjev's had an incident in the second sector by the look of it, as a big wobble from the high-tech coming right on in front of his teammate. Goodness me, the cardinal sin of motorsport. You do not hit your teammate. And that very nearly happened there between Bostonjev and Gianno Alazzari. So Bostonjev ran wide and missed the timing beacon. That's why he suddenly dropped all the way to the back of the field. And there's a car slowing on the straight with big damage. That is the 84, I do believe. That is Gino Trappa. So one of the high-techs is gone already. Yellow flags on the home stretch as the Argentine Gino Trappa becomes the first retirement of 2026 as Alazzari goes dueling with the GRS of Ryan Caretti into the first chicane and comes out on top. So Alazzari already back to P16. Let's see what happened. There's the contact. Oh, well, no, there's the result of the contact. It's a broken left front wheel for Gino Trappa. We didn't quite see what happened to cause that. Now down on the inside, that's going to be a big lunge for Patrick Hosenroder trying to get through on Bostonjev. Hosenroder already up into 20th place, so he's making big progress. So the drivers work their way down the back straight. And that's another car in jeopardy. That is Bianca Bustamante in the Polo. Safety car is called. So with Gino Trappa and Bianca Bustamante off to the sidelines, it's no surprise the safety car is being called. We've got 2 retirements then on this 3rd lap of the season. And that's very unfortunate indeed, as Gino Trappa doesn't quite complete the 2nd lap. Bianca Bustamante had an incident in the 1st sector. So safety car proceedings then. The Dallara Stradale will make its way out onto the circuit. And a very difficult battle now gets a chance for a bit of a reset here. Incident involving car 31 on turn 2 is noted. Now that is Renzo Barboy, the car that spun. So whether that's to see if there was an incident that caused that, or whether it was just Renzo Barboy losing the car altogether, not easy to tell. So this is definitely going to be an opportunity for all the drivers giving chase to René Lammers as Bianca Bustamante gets out of the car, looks to see what the problem is, but it's all academic at the moment. She puts the steering wheel back in her car, and sadly, that's game over for the first race of her season in EUROCUP-3. 2 more chances this weekend, of course, in the sprint race and in race 2 tomorrow. She's been making steady progress through testing. She's had a fairly decent time of it in single-seaters of late, of course. She was a prolific driver at the front end of the field in Indian Racing League. She was a seasoned campaigner in F1 Academy when she was under the McLaren banner. And when she's not racing in EUROCUP-3, she's also doing some testing work for the Cupra Kia team in Formula E. So very good work indeed from her so far, working for Kiro Cupra. But sadly, this is not really the emotion she wants to dwell on at this point, because the car is not going any further, and there's a little bit of debris there to the right side of your picture that will need to be swept away by the marshals before we can go racing again. It's just off the racing line, as is of course Gino Trappa's car. He's now off to the far side too, so disappointment then for Gino Trappa, as that is the number 23, Stefan Bostanjev, currently running in 19th in front of Patrick Hosenroder. So Hosenroder's made up 10 places. Alazari's up to 16th now, after starting from pole position and then having a sluggish run off the line. You can see the bollard there on the inside of that hairpin has already been displaced. So already some fairly precarious moments then in the first part of the race here in EUROCUP-3, as the safety car leads the field around. So it'll be fascinating to see how things currently work out for our drivers as they run in position. But it's going to be René Lammers who leads on the restart, then James Igozzi, Alex Powell, Ian Eichmans, Gianmarco Pradel, Rafael Parad, Heiter Delagnol and Enzo Tarnvanitschgul. Then Santino Panetta and Thomas Strauven's done a good job. Strauven's all the way up into 10th place now. So good work from the Belgian. Chris Alfagali in 11th place in front of Kasper Stuka. Alcivel Bonetto 13th in front of Filippo Fiorentino. Bart Harrison's done a fair job too. Up into 15th place now, the British driver. Then it's Gianni Alazari on the comeback trail after his shenanigans at the start. Ryan Caretti doing good, 17th in front of Lorenzo Campos, who's also made progress. Then Bostanjev, Hosenroder, Linus Lundqvist down in 21st. He won't be happy about that. Andrei Petrovic is where he started, 22nd. Then Stylianos Kolovos, Luca Vizzarono, Andrew Rodriguez, Eduard Borgna, then Benjamin Beckley and Renzo Barboy. The last 2 drivers are no longer circulating, of course, Bianca Bustamante and Gino Trappa. A shame that they're both out of the race. So there is Bianca Bustamante's car being recovered by the safety teams here at Paul Ricard. Obviously working in collaboration with the European Le Mans Series and making sure that they run to close proximity. Bianca comes back to the car to assist them in the recovery. And the safety car and convoy are going through pit lane. That's because Gino Trappa's car recovery is currently taking place on the start-finish line, and because it's directly after the final turn, for safety reasons, with marshals being on an active circuit, it makes much more sense for safety grounds to bring the drivers through pit lane. So the marshals are actually asking Bianca Bustamante to assist them in the recovery by getting back into the car to help them at least steer the car to a safe position, and that will put us back under racing conditions a lot faster. So the cars work their way through pit lane here at Paul Ricard. It's a rather unusual pit lane setup that we've got here to the new improved circuit Paul Ricard, because the pit lane buildings are not parallel to the main straight like they are on most circuits. It actually runs on the slant here, and then there's a little kink in pit lane to get the circuit parallel again with the circuit exit. But it's a fantastic facility here at Circuit Paul Ricard. I've been to the track a couple of times before now, and the work that the circuit president, Jean Alesi, has done in the advancement of this place has been fantastic. I've been here for several car race meetings now, including as well the FIA Motorsport Games, my first visit to this place back in 2022, where the whole complex was turned into a motorsport festival. We had rallying, we had karting, we had drifting, we had many different forms of circuit racing, all in one venue. Absolutely astonishing, the work that went on here, and that was a fantastic event to be at. Many of the drivers here, of course, all hoping that one day they can get an FIA Motorsport Games gold medal. One or two of them have even attempted to in the past, in either karting or F4 in the past. There is Gino Trapper coming back into the pit lane. Alex Garcia is down in pit lane. Alex, what can you tell us?
Hello, Jake. Well, as you've seen, everyone was just going through the pit lane right now because with the main straight right now in a position where safety would be compromised, we just do their usual regulation in this case, and we just go through the pit lane. In theory, they might be coming again. That's what we're expecting. So we could have a couple more laps. Behind the safety car. I hope it's just one. In any case, that's been definitely a hectic start to the 2026 season. But I just look forward to seeing how these guys do the restart. You know that the restarts are always exciting here.
Yeah, disastrous for Keanu Al-Azari, dropping all the way to the back of the field, but he's already worked his way through to 16th place now, Alex, so it might not be done yet for the man from Dubai.
I can tell you that some of the teams here in the pit lane that are from other categories were just watching the race. They were excitedly looking at what Keanu Al-Azari was doing on screen when he was appearing. And you know that this is the usual Keanu Al-Azari action on track. When for whatever reason he's behind his usual positions, you see that he slices through all the drivers like a knife through butter. So, you know, that's the usual business for him. Hopefully he gets to be in a few higher positions and be a factor at the end of the race.
We've certainly seen a few drivers take the initiative at the start and go for some big moves. Already Hosenroder's working his way through the field like wildfire. Some good starts as well from Thomas Strauven, from Bart Harrison doing a fair job as well. Kasper Stucker's made good progress. There's quite a few drivers that have taken the opportunity in this first part of the race to really change their stars. This could be a fascinating opening race when we get going again. Of course, we're only going to have about 15 minutes or so when we do.
Exactly, and I'm also quite impressed with the general performance by Palau Racing, Palau Motorsport I should say, with I think it's 3 cars in the top 10, which again comes back to what we were talking on the grid. More teams are joining that usual fight, that usual duel at the front of the grid, and I think that now it's pretty much confirmed that we have them being a factor, and they should continue to be until the end of the race. So yes, we've seen some, let's say, less expected drivers doing a few moves in the start of the race, so that's great to see.
So there's only going to be about, I would guess, roughly about 7 laps or so left when we go racing again at the maximum. That's if we don't get another safety car. Is that going to be enough time, do we think, for Keanu Al-Azari to A, get back into the points, and B, to get back into the podium?
I was thinking about that, Jake, just a few minutes ago. I think the points should be a yes for me. Podium, I think it's tricky. Then again, if he has a good restart, that should be the key to mounting an assault on that podium. It's difficult though. I think he should have to do something really, really special, or there should have to be problems for some of the cars ahead. But points, I think it's almost guaranteed at this point. You know, assuming that we don't have a much longer safety car in any case. As you said, 7 laps should be it, and in 7 laps we should be able to get there. You know, 2 cars per lap, it's definitely possible.
It's almost an advantage, I guess, to be driving angry, because we've seen the frustrations from Keanu Al-Azari in the past when he's had to try and make a recovery. He seems to be able to find that extra exertion. Does that come partly from the car, or does that come from him as well? I mean, is it a combination of factors that allows a driver like Keanu to be able to make that kind of progress so quickly?
I mean, the car for sure is competitive. We know that High-Tech is a team with a long history of very competitive machines in single-seaters, so this is, to me, that's not surprising. But as a driver, yes, sometimes you have that extra bit of motivation, that little bit of anger, let's say, to push you forward. And we know that, Keanu Al-Azari anger is not certain other drivers' anger. It's a lot more controlled, it's a lot more focused, and it's a lot less prone to mistakes, which is what you fear when you're angry. So if you're angry and you get the speed, but you don't get the mistakes, then that's a win-win in my book. Yes, you want to be at the front, but if you have to recover, the best way to do it is keeping that cool head. And we know that he's been particularly good at it.
He certainly has. Well, we've got the notification that we wanted. Alex, thank you. Down in pit lane, go grab a story or two if you can. But the safety car is now coming in. And so it is time for René Lammers to back up the pack once again. James Igotzi and Alex Powell are going to be right there behind him. Second, third, Eichmanns, Pradel, Perard, Delagnol, Tan van Inchkel, Santana Panetta and Thomas Strauven. Top 10 are going to be very eager to make progress on the first lap. Looks like we've already gone for it, as René Lammers has gone very early, I have to say. A good 3 corners from the end of the lap, so he's decided to pull the ignition very early and start to make an impact on this restart. Can Igotzi and Powell stay with him? And is that a brave move from René Lammers? We'll find out as we get onto the home straight and we go green, 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 green here at Paul Ricard. Lammers leading away then on a very early restart. Igotzi, Powell, Eichmanns, Pradel and Perard. There's already a couple of battles down to the first corner by the look of it, but certainly the top 3 are close. We know how fiery James Igotzi can get though, as he is going to try and work his best to get back onto terms with things. As the American continues his trajectory forward, looks like there's going to be a bad battle down into the chicane. That is a very strong run from Alcif Feldman, trying to keep Filippo Fiorentino at bay. Keanu Al-Azari trying to go right round the outside of Bart Harrison. That's brave even for him, but he can't quite make it stick on this occasion. He's going to have to wait until Harrison pops out onto the run down the Mistral straight. Of course, that straight is broken up by a chicane halfway down it. We are approaching the breaking point for that chicane. Lammers is trying to get it nicely bedded in. Powell has a little bit of pressure from Eichmanns and Pradel. Down on the inside line, that's the Drivex going wheel to wheel with Thomas Strauven. Christophe Gali, the Lebanese driver, trying to get in front. But Thomas Strauven, having made as much progress as he has, is certainly going to want to continue that. We've got a car out of line. Is that dropping down the order? Is that a car going slowly, or is that a car just trying to react to what's going on? Still these two side by side, and right off the road goes Thomas Strauven. This time El Fagali has cracked the whip and he's got in front. So great work from Chris El Fagali as he takes over the position. Now they come into the third and final sector. It's Filippo Fiorentino that's dropping down the order. It looks like Alcif Feldman Neto has had a problem as well. He's down to 15th place then. So Alcif Feldman Neto's lost a lot of ground. Indeed, Al-Azari is ahead of him. So through comes Igotzi, and he's under pressure now. Here comes Alex Powell. Alex Powell fancies a crack at it. Down the main straight once again then as we go across the line with just over 11 minutes to go. The starting procedure will be investigated after the session according to race control, as we've got side by side down the straight. This is going to get tense into the first corner, as we got 2 drivers battling close. That's Campos and Bostanjev, I think, down to the inside line. So Bostanjev losing out to Lorenzo Campos as the double R gets through. So Lorenzo Campos, the Angolan, has got in front. Igotzi still hustling Lammers. As the field tries to get fairly close to each other, they run through on that far side of the course. Back up the crest, they will go onto the Mistral straight again. And Igotzi trying to keep close to the Dutchman, René Lammers. Fabulous to see. René Lammers really starting to jog on a pace here. This is the potential we've seen from him for quite some time now in this paddock, but the rookie driver leading the way to James Igotzi. Igotzi putting him under pressure and going side by side. Can he run around the outside? No, he can't. René Lammers ensures that he stays in front, and that's put Igotzi on the back foot. Now Powell will get a chance to pounce on the American. And so the 2 men carrying the Star-Spangled Banner on their cars will be dueling for second place down the straight. Through the right-hander. Oh, there's been an incident further back. Front wing off for the 23. That is Stefan Bostenjev. As now, Agotzi has caught back up to Lammers on the run down the Mistral Straight. And now Powell is trying to take on Agotzi. All three of them very close together as they run through. But are we going to get a safety car to break up this squabble? Agotzi knows he's got to try and get in front quickly in case that safety car gets called. So Agotzi still pushing to try and get in front of the Dutchman. I'm sure that Jan Lammers is going to be watching on the sidelines, loving every moment. Here's the replay of what happened further back. Contact. There looks like there was a little bit of a nudge there from one of the Campos cars, and there's damage to his front wing. That looks like Kasper Stücker. No, sorry, that's the Technicar. My apologies. It might be Thomas Strauven who's got problems with his car. No, it's Hosenroder. It's Patrick Hosenroder in the Griffin core. He's coming to the pits then with a front wing. Incident involving car 37. Failure to follow race director instructions noted. That's the 37. That's Filippo Fiorentino. So we're not entirely sure exactly what the situation is, but certainly it's enough to get the race direction a little bit flustered. For the moment, it looks as though that little incident has been recovered relatively quickly. Certainly a limp back to the pits was not what Stefan Bostenjev had in mind, but that's what's happened. Hosenroder too. So both of them back to the pits with their tails between their legs. Meanwhile, we've got some very frenetic racing coming because Ryan Caretti is under some big, intense heat now from Feldman, Harrison, Campos, Petrovic and Linus Lundqvist. On the inside, meanwhile, Chiara Alazzari dueling to get through in front of Kasper Stücker and Thomas Strauven. And now Alazzari up into 11th place. Leave enough room if you're going to run side by side, that'll do. That's just about okay for Alcif Feldman. He leaves Lorenzo Campos with enough room to play with as they go back down the straight. That was Tom Vanichko going through from Bonetta, El Fagali, Alazzari, Strauven, Stücker, Fiorentino and Ryan Caretti. Back to the front, and now Powell's under pressure from Ian Eichmans, the Belgian. And just like Jan Lammers, Ian Eichmans also comes from a successful racing family. Ian's father, Wim, very talented man. Worked his way through the GT, saloon car and even IndyCar route. Tried to qualify for the Indy 500 many years ago. Here's the battle further back. Look at that, it's a nice switcheroo. That was beautiful from Ryan Caretti. Dives through on the inside line and manages to muller Alcif Feldman Neto. Meanwhile, Chiara Alazzari getting his move done here on Thomas Strauven. And further back, this is how close it can get sometimes in the midfield. Whoa, up in the air for Alcif Feldman Neto. Well, the Brazilian Lightning McQueen going for a bit of a skydive there. That was not quite what he was hoping for. Why do we call him the Brazilian Lightning McQueen? Well, because when he races in the Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil, he actually runs in the Rust-eze Lightning McQueen livery on his Porsche. He has race overalls and race helmet in Lightning McQueen colours as well. But he doesn't, interestingly, run as number 95, because he says every time he's run as number 95, bad things have happened to him. He changed to the number 8, and has done so for EUROCUP-3 as well, and ever since then everything's been going well. Superstition or an omen, you decide. So down the back straight, currently it is the lead still for Lammers, and he seems to have found good rhythm. Fastest lap of the race still goes all the way back to Gianmarco Pradel, who did a 1:57.04 on the second lap of the race, so that was quite a long time ago now. This is what happens when the circuit starts to heat up, because as we go further into the day, the circuit gets hotter. Since the start of the race, when it was at 37 degrees Celsius, the track has already intensified up to 39. So the circuit is faster the cooler that it is. At the moment, we're doing lap times a little bit slower than that. We're currently in and around the 1:55.8 and we're in and around the 1:57.8, 1:57.9. Interestingly, the ideal lap time for the circuit is a 1:55.9, so the drivers could, if they pull their resources, find another second in this circuit, but it's not likely to happen now as the circuit is getting hotter and the tyres are getting more worn. Alazzari, meanwhile, is in P10, so he's in the points. So we did say that points were almost a guarantee on his current pace, but has he got the time to get to the podium? I would say probably not. We've got 5.5 minutes, and Chiara Alazzari is 6 seconds back from the race leader. And crucially, he is 4 seconds back from the podium. that's a lot of time to make up in a little over 5 minutes. It is 5 minutes and 15 seconds plus 1 lap remaining in this one. But there's been great battles all the way. And on a circuit which has a reputation for not always providing the most exciting of races, enter the Dallara 326 to change that. It's definitely given us plenty of good battles so far. Egotzi's closed up on Lammers again. If he can find some good pace down the back straight, there's an opportunity here for the American. James Egotzi going for it. Let's see if the American can find his move. Lammers is really having to work to keep it back, and Egotzi's in front. James Egotzi takes the lead here on Paul Ricard. Fabulous work from James Egotzi, and the Polo is leading. Everyone in the United States of America just rose from their seat and cheered euphorically as James Egotzi has got into the lead here in superb style. Now he's got to try and break away from René Lammers. But Alex Powell is waiting in the wings as well. He'll want his own designs on this win. But Egotzi has timed it well. He's got ahead of René Lammers, who is a rookie in this car, don't forget. James Egotzi raced in EUROCUP-3 last season. But of course, everybody effectively is a rookie in this car. It is very different even to the EUROCUP-3 machine from last year. So everybody's still getting to learn the circuit and learn the car in a very different manner. René Lammers looks for the inside of James Egotzi. No chance. I wasn't born yesterday, says James Egotzi. Come at me with a proper move. Get back to me when you've got a real overtake in your arsenal. On the inside line comes Ryan Coretti, who really is doing a fantastic job in the midfield here. Dueling with Filippo Fiorentino, I think that is. No, sorry, that is, it was Fiorentino. And they're still dueling side by side. Coretti and Fiorentino. Coretti is the inside line, Fiorentino is the outside line, but who's got the bravery? It's Coretti. He dives in and finishes off the overtake. Fiorentino calmly gets back on his rear wing though. We could see yet another duel as we now get a new fastest lap. It's James Egotzi. He bangs in a 1:56.6. The ideal lap, interestingly, is 0.8 of a second quicker than that. So onto the back straight we go again. Powell still trying to get a little closer to Lammers. Eichmans has dropped Pradell a little. Then we've got Perard in P6, Delagnol, Tarvanitschko, Alizari is past Santino Panetta for 9th. Egotzi will need to keep one eye on his mirrors as René Lammers tries again. But James Egotzi doing a fantastic job controlling the pace in the Polo. Still 3 different teams in the top 3 places, Polo, MP and Griffincorp. Eichmans and Pradell doing a grand job in 4th and 5th. Fair play to the Polo teammates of Egotzi, Perard and Delagnol. They're doing very well indeed. P6 and 7 for those two. And don't forget, Rafael Perard has very limited car racing experience. Only 2 seasons in F4 prior to this. And not full campaigns either. Around the far side, Chris Alfagali trying to take on Kasper Stuttgart, who's having a tough run in the Technicar. Oh, Santino Panetta's had a problem. Panetta's dropped all down the order. So Panetta has fallen back to at least the 20s. Not entirely sure how much further he's going to hope to go. Right, we've got less than 2 minutes on the clock, which means as they come across the line, we've got 2 laps to go. Up to the first corner once again. Egotzi, Lammers, Powell, Eichmans, Pradell, Perard, Delagnol, Alizari, Tarvanitschko and Panetta. Left-hander. Squad on the power again for the right. Don't let the back end travel. Once that starts snapping away, you really know about it. Still these two are at it. Fantastic between Fiorentino and Coretti. And this time Fiorentino's found the work, but he drifts slightly sideways. Oh no, it's Chris Alfagali, my apologies. So it's Coretti actually going after Fiorentino's teammate, Alfagali. So now he's trying to take on the Lebanese. Coretti's having a fantastic second half to this race. This is his first race in EuroCup-3, don't forget. We didn't see him in the Spanish Winter Championship. And Ryan Coretti absolutely stalwarting this. The Thai driver, who runs under a French licence, was a Thai karting champion on the circuits of Beira and Chiang Mai. Worked his way to French F4, did a fantastic job in the last couple of seasons, and now races still under a French licence, but still very much carrying the hopes of Thailand. Isn't it amazing? You wait years for a Thai driver, and then as soon as Alex Albon gets to F1, loads of them come out of the woodwork. Meanwhile, Chiara Alizari fancies the top 6. He's going to run out of time, unfortunately, for any more than that. He's got ahead of Hota Delagnol. There is the Brazilian, and that's Enzo Tarmanitschkel in P9. Not a bad run for him either. But Keanu Alazari always seems to find his feet. That's the Red Bull Junior. Enzo Tarmanitschkel battling, and he's forced the mistake. He's forced the error from Delagnol. Enzo Tarmanitschkel sweeps into the inside, but the Brazilian fights back. No, you don't. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, and I'm not going to fall for it. Excellent work from Heiter Delagnol as we go into the final lap of the first race of the season. And look at the daylight Igotzi has put on himself and Lammers. 9/10 of a second could be enough. Still, Ryan Caretti is trying to skate away from the Drivex cars. He's just going to run out of time to get to the points, but what an opening race from Ryan Caretti. Certainly done a good job. So on to the final lap we go. And the American James Igotzi looks to have stolen victory from the jaws of defeat. Alazari's had a good recovery here for P7, but he really needs to get on with it if he wants to get into the top 6 before the checkered flag falls, and this is the last lap. Enzo Tarmanitschkel still trying to take on Delagnol. He'll be starting the sprint race later from pole position, don't forget. And we've only got 3 sprint races in 2026, so he'll want to maximise the point scoring chance that pole position will give him. But down the Mistral straight, broken up by the chicane, of course, and Igotzi does not have Lammers close enough to him to be sweating. Alazari, meanwhile, is trying to push Rafael Parad into a mistake. There's Delagnol, Tarmanitschkel and Panetta, the final point scorers. We may have had a safety car, but boy, have we had a good race despite that. Back straight, Lammers is still working to try and get that deficit down to James Igotzi. But it's been a stunning drive from the American. Really good effort from the man from Fort Lauderdale in Florida. He's been absolutely superb since he climbed into a Below race car. The former factory driver in the Tony Kart racing team in karting stepped up through the ranks, got into the Below Motorsport team, and he's been on a whirling dervish ever since then. And Lammers is having to hold on to second from Alex Powell. Never mind challenge for the victory. It's been a real snatch and grab from the American. Into the final corner comes the Below number 48, and it's the American James Igotzi who takes the first EuroCup-3 victory of 2026, majestically so. Lammers is second, Powell is third, from Eichmanns, Pradell, Perard and Keanu Alazari, with Delagnol, Tarmanitschkel and Panetta banking some points. Well, a fascinating opening race of the season, and so the battle for the title starts here as more drivers are going wheel to wheel down the straight to cross the line in close proximity. Boy, was that close between Petrovic and Lundqvist, as Petrovic comes through to 17th, beating Lundqvist by just 23 thousandths of a second. So James Igotzi doing a fantastic job, and he gets an amazing run. What a drive from James Igotzi. A race that has 2 Americans on the podium, René Lammers in the middle, and no Keanu Alazari. That's going to be a fight back from the man from Dubai then. And we're up for it. A fascinating race to start the EuroCup-3 season here at Le Castellet. But it's absolutely wonderful to watch the battle between James Igotzi, René Lammers and Alex Powell. They took it all the way to the line, and a fabulous duel ensued. But James Igotzi certainly giving us a fantastic demonstration as to why he is a championship contender. And of course, in an era where America is a key market for Formula One, to have drivers like James Igotzi and Alex Powell marching their way to glory, this is a big moment for them. And for Igotzi to start the season with a win and Alex Powell to start the season with a podium is very important for them. Igotzi, Lammers and Powell from Eichmanns and Pradell, a great top 5. Rafael Parad P6 from the fighting Keanu Alazari, who bounces back after his stall on the grid from pole. Delagnol, Tarmanitschkel, and the final point going to Santino Panetta. Then Thomas Strauben, Kasper Stuka, Ryan Caretti driving beautifully, Alfagali, Fiorentino, Bart Harrison, Andrei Petrovic, Linus Lundqvist, Lorenzo Campos and Alcifel Manetto. And then Luca Vizzarono in front of Stylianos Kolovos, Andre Rodriguez, Eduard Borja, Renzo Barboy, Benjamin Beckley, Patrick Hosenroder and Stefan Bostanjev after their visits to the pits for damage. And then the non-starters, Bianca non-finishers, Bianca Bustamante and Gino Trapper. That's what happened to Keanu Alazari at the start. He engaged the throttle and bang, nothing happened. The car just spluttered to a crawl. But what a sensational start to the season these guys are giving us. Look, that was Igotzi down in 3rd position on the first corners. So it shows you just how much Igotzi wanted this win. He was down in 3rd place on the first lap, trying to make a recovery drive to close up on Lammers and Powell. So the way he fought his way back to the victory, very deserving indeed. So no doubt Alex Palou will be giving a quick nudge to Chip Ganassi going, hey, when I'm done, you want to give this boy a go? Trust me, I know he's amazing. Some of the best bits of the race, that's the moment Renzo Barboy spun the car around, manages to catch it and rejoin. That avoided us a safety car. But there were one too many incidents in this flamboyant first couple of laps of the season that eventually gave us a safety car anyway. Gino Trappa in front of this pack. There he goes with damage to his front wheel. Well and truly out of the first race of the season. And then a few corners later, Bianca Bustamante would join them as she dropped out of the race too. Very unfortunate indeed for those drivers. The Delara Stradale safety car picking up the field and bunching us up. Once we got back to racing again though, plenty of drama all the way. There were wheel-to-wheel battles throughout the pack, but nobody was more motivated than James Igotzi. That's the moment earlier on between the two cars that ended up coming into the pits for damage, Patrick Hosenroder and Stefan Bostenjev. That's a very brave Marshall going out onto the circuit to recover that one. Don't worry, he'll return it to the high-tech team. That won't be on his bedroom wall. But there was a fantastic run from the young pretender, Ryan Coretti. Great work for the GRS team. And there goes an airborne Alcifel Manetto. All sorts of problems for him. But there's the moment when James Igotzi told everybody, I'm going to win in 2026, and I'm not going to take long to do it either. Fabulous move on René Lammers. And the American flies past the Dutchman into the lead. And it was a lead he would never lose. Great performance from James Igotzi then to start the season in flamboyant and victorious fashion. And he is the top banana in the first race of EUROCUP-3 2026. As graceful as that goal. Absolutely wonderful racing to start the season here at Paul Ricard. And of course we've got a sprint race coming up later, which will give us even more entertainment and even more action, as we're going to have a very different grid positions. There is James Igotzi already out of the car. You've got to remember that we're not the main attraction for this weekend. We are a support championship, so we don't quite get all of the same flamboyance and circumstance that you would normally get in a EuroCup-3 exclusive weekend. But certainly a fantastic race to start the season with, as René Lammers gets pulled into his second position in Parc Fermé. There is Chiano Alazzari, one of the first to congratulate James Igotzi after his race. They're very good friends, those two. Even though they're rivals, they are former teammates in the Tony Kart days. You don't forget your karting roots, and you don't forget the friendships you made when you were in karting. But it's a terrific start to the season for Palou in what is already an emotional weekend for Chip Ganassi in America. They have had to say goodbye to their legendary champion, Alessandro Zanardi, who sadly passed away going into the weekend. But Alex Palou, their current boy wonder, has certainly found another star for the future. Maybe it'll be in the Grand Prix paddock. Maybe it'll be stateside at the Indy 500. Wherever he goes, he's going to be a meteoric superstar in the making. James Igotzi, definitely a talent to watch out for in the future of this category and in categories further on. Stupendous start to the season. We got plenty of action in that first race, certainly to keep everybody happy. In the background there you can see Chiano Alazzari already trying to assess the situation, but down in pit lane we can see that James Igotzi has found the man on the spot. Alex Garcia is obviously going to be in conversation very shortly indeed with James Igotzi. Looks like James has found someone else to have a chat to very quickly first. It's not like Alex Garcia to have to be told to wait in line. But James Igotzi will be there surely to give us the lowdown on a fantastic race battle. Alex, I'll hand it over to you. It's a fantastic man you get to have a chat with.
We'll forgive him in this case for leaving us hanging here. James, come on, man. You're the quickest guy. You cannot make us wait. How was that?
It was fun. Good racing by everybody. Classic Paul Ricard race. So really enjoyable, and massive thank you to the team, sponsors, and everybody who made this happen. It's been a pleasure.
You did miss one key rival in that fight at the top today, didn't you?
Yeah, unfortunately, well, fortunately, I guess for us, Keanu made a mistake at the beginning and it made the race a little bit simpler. But we know he'll be in it for the other races, so nobody's relaxing yet.
Best possible way to start the season, best possible way to start the championship, best possible way to start the weekend. What's in store for the rest of Paul Ricard?
More racing, more points, and hopefully some more trophies.
Do we talk about the strategy of he who finishes second in the Spanish Winter Championship aims for the title in the regular season?
Yeah, well, it worked last year for Konagi, and he won the first race of the season, and I seem to have done the same. So, eyes forward for the rest of the championship.
Following the script then.
Following the script.
Time to enjoy, James. Congratulations.
Merci beaucoup.
Learning French with James Segozzi. Merci beaucoup. He says, of course, very happy to have won that first race. And keep an eye on that, Jay, because he's following that script that Mattia Colnaghi wrote last year.
That's yet another language to add to James Segozzi's vocabulary then, because he still has that little hint of his baby Italian accent that came with him from karting. So great to see. But look, a fabulous fighting drive in the first race of the season. It would have been very easy on a circuit like Paul Ricard that has a reputation occasionally for processional races, but not in that one. Fabulous to see James Segozzi roll his sleeves up and fight his way from third position to the victory.
Yes, exactly, and he did it in a very calm and collected way. He did not seem to be under particularly huge pressure in any point. Of course, when you're fighting for the win, you are always in certain amount of pressure, but he didn't seem to be out of his depth. We know that he's race winner, of course, and he's one of the main candidates for this 2026 season, but what we saw was pretty much what we expected in terms of performance. Now the key is what he said. There's 2 more races, there's 2 more moments where we can have some good racing action. Let's see who actually gets to be fighting at the top. For starters, the next race we have today, the sprint race, will have a reverse grid from qualifying 1, so that's going to be another different story to keep in mind.
Yeah, to have Enzo Tarvanitschkel and Chris Elfagali on the front row of the starting grid, that's going to be grandstand motorsport to the first chicane. But it'll be fascinating as well to see what the drivers at the front end of the field make. It's amazing that this first race weekend, we saw my 4 favourites for the title in the first 4 positions on the starting grid. Chiaro Alazzari, René Lammers, James Segozzi, Alex Powell. Those are the 4 men I tipped to become champion potentially in 2026, and they're all there on pure pace. Now we get to see the beauty of this Dallara 326 and the hunger and the determination of those 4 as they try to scramble out of P9, 10, 11 and 12 in the sprint race later.
Exactly, and let's not forget about Keanu Alazzari and what a race he had after that disastrous start. He did exactly what we expected. He was recovering lap after lap after lap, slicing through the rest of the field. And this is probably what shows what kind of speed the top drivers have, those candidates for the title. They're not strangers to doing this kind of activity. And I'm counting guys like Enzo Tarvanitschkel in this. We've seen him do this kind of recovery races. So when you see these guys doing that, you know that you're watching someone quite special. As you said, will they make it to F1? Will they make it to IndyCar? Will they make it to endurance racing? That is for the future to decide. But what's for sure is that we do have a lot of talent to follow here, and that's what makes EUROCUP-3 just so enjoyable to watch. Well, that and the Dallara 326, of course.
It certainly helps, doesn't it? But yeah, you're absolutely right. The drivers here have no idea what the future has in store for them. They all want to be on the starting grids at Indianapolis, at Monaco, at all of those fantastic race circuits at Le Mans. There's so many opportunities laying out them, but it's really important that they utilize every opportunity they have here. And the people that are scrutinizing them and they're assessing them, they're not going to be fools. They know what to look for in the data. They know what to look for in the maneuvers the drivers are making, the sort of lap times they're putting in, the consistency of the tyres that they're looking after as well. It's more than just the race result that counts. It's how the driver gets that result. It's how they do the homework in qualifying, how they do it in practice, how they bring the team forward, how they communicate with the engineers. It's not just winning races that counts. There's so much more that goes into the ultimate ingredients to make up a race-winning driver in Formula 1. Don't forget, it's been hard for champions in Formula 2 and Formula 3 to work their way into Formula 1 and keep a staple position. It's how you get to that point. It's how you mold yourself into that professional that makes you a desirable element for a Formula 1 team.
Exactly, and these drivers, they have, of course, known this pressure for a long time, and you know, we're talking about drivers who often have to fight against the pressures on track, the difficulty of finding sponsors, and still keeping that ability to focus on the racing stuff. So when you know these young drivers are able to keep those problems away from what happens on track, that's, let's say, it's a skill that serves you well later in professional motorsports, because there's a lot of things going on in IndyCar, in Formula One, in endurance racing, and sometimes it doesn't depend on the driver, and the driver needs to have that ability to get his mind or her mind away from it and perform. And these guys are doing just that, and it is so exciting because we're watching them grow up as drivers, as people, pretty much live on screen.
Yeah, it's mad for someone like me who's been there for at least 5 or 6 years in the karting world to see them mature and grow from boys to men, and to put themselves into these prolific race teams like MP and Campos and Technicar and Drivex and Double R and Hi-Tech and Palo, who have already put amazing work and grounding into these youngsters to turn them into mega stars of the future. I can remember kicking a football around with half of these kids a few years ago at the back of the karting paddocks in Franciacorta, at Christianstad, at Genk in Belgium. And these guys are going on to magnificent stuff. It's mad to think that 1/3 of the current F1 grid are youngsters that I saw coming through the ranks of these junior formulae and are now in Formula One as ultimate superstars. It's great to see them really excel and achieve their greatness. And this is just the start. There's so much to come over the course of the season. Paul Ricard is just one simple chapter of it. Looking at the calendar for this year, Alex, we've got so many great circuits to come. Portimao, Imola, Monza, Silverstone, Hungaroring, Catalonia. It's Formula One grade circuits all the way this year.
It's all of those circuits that teach you different lessons as well, because it's not obviously the same racing here in Paul Ricard as it will be racing in a lot more old school places like Imola, or a high-speed track like Monza, or the twisty corners of Budapest and in Hungaroring. So you have a little bit of everything, and that's what makes this calendar just so good for the drivers. And you add that, as we said, the current machine, and you have the perfect school to learn and to become a fantastic racing driver for the future.
So the drivers will head out onto the podium, the first podium ceremony of the 2026 season in EUROCUP-3. And of course, the drivers in the rookie podium will also be there, which is going to be Lammers and Powell, joined by Ian Eichmans. But it's wonderful to see such a fantastic start to the season. Sadly, we've now lost our pictures to the circuit because the Ligier European Series is getting underway in fantastic fashion. A quick hello to my friend Noah Rosser, who is actually racing in Ligier European Series this weekend, having come out of the world of Tillotson T4 karting into Ligier European for this year. Sad that I don't get to shake hands with him in person over the course of the weekend, because of course I'm on EuroCup-3 duty here at Paul Ricard, but always wonderful to see young talent rise up and take on the motorsport circuit grades of the world-class fraternity. Now, the drivers will venture out and get themselves onto the podium for the first time in 2026, and it's going to be a very exciting moment for James Zagotzi in particular. For Alex Powell and René Lammers, it's a good start. Third and second in the first race of the year will certainly keep them happy. It's a contented start to the season for them. Chiara Baldassarri will only be fired up finishing P7. He'll want a lot more than that over the course of this weekend. And of course, there's only 10 points on offer for the sprint race later this afternoon, so whoever manages to get that race won is going to be in a very prosperous position. And of course, the second pole position for tomorrow will go the way of the Australian Gianmarco Pradell. So it's going to be a very different race tomorrow for race 2. But in race 1, it's a great start. The sprint race coming up this afternoon, and then race 2 tomorrow, because we have the race 1 and 2, which are the normal length of 30 minutes plus 1 lap, and then we have the sprint race awarding reduced points, and of course a reverse grid from the qualifying session of race 1. That's how the format works for 3 of the weekends this year. For all the others, it will just be 2 races as usual. So it's definitely going to be exciting to see how the competitors will line up. At Portimao, of course, we've only got 2 races. Imola will have 3, Monza will have 2. At the as yet to be announced venue for August, there'll be 2. 3 races at Silverstone, and then 2 at the Hungaroring and Catalonia. That means that in total this season, we will have a fantastic 19 races in total to give these drivers a great run. Palou Motorsport take the team's trophy. Certainly a very exciting weekend for the team as they continue to make steady progress. Of course, their man Alex Palou is actually getting prepared for the Indy 500 later this month, the greatest spectacle in motor racing. But he'll be very happy that his man has got to the top step of the podium in the first race of his team's season in EuroCup-3. Third position though, great start for Alex Powell, a man with a massive future in front of him. He may no longer be in the Mercedes Junior program, but that doesn't mean another Formula One team won't be snapping him up very quickly indeed. It wouldn't surprise me if Haas or Cadillac decide that this boy is worth their time. He's certainly got a massive future in front of him. Prolific race winner in karting, and certainly doing a grand job now that he's in EuroCup-3. His first race of the season, third position. René Lammers, a fabulous competitor in Formula 4, and really doing so again in EuroCup-3. Son of the Le Mans 24 Hours winner Jan Lammers, who of course also raced in Formula 1 on several occasions. Great to see René really stepping out of his father's shadow and proving that it really does run in the blood. But the victor, the spoils, and so it's the man from Fort Lauderdale in Florida in the United States, James Igotzi, who comes out onto the top step of the podium and takes the first victory of the 2026 season in EuroCup-3, and deservedly so. And so in his honour, the Star Spangled Banner. A fabulous start to the season then for James Igotzi, and that will take a lot of the pressure off this weekend for him as well, to get the first race of the weekend out of the way, and with 25 points in his pocket, heading to the second race of the day, the sprint race later, where there's only 10 points on offer, so it's not exactly a write-off for the championship contenders early doors, but there's certainly very little to lose in the sprint race as far as they're concerned. They'll just want to deliver as much as they can from that encounter and get some points on the board. Alex Powell, third position, 15 points for his tally, and the second best rookie in the first race of the year. Very impressive performance indeed from the Griffincourt ace. René Lammers, the Dutch colours of MP, always near the podium, if not on it, in EuroCup-3, and certainly for this weekend there's no difference. It's René Lammers enjoying second, and he'll take the rookie win on the rookie podium shortly after this, of course. But he'll only be satisfied when he's standing in the same position James Igotzi is now. He takes the first win of the season, and he is so confident, so calm and so collected. In his karting days, he always used to look like he had one eye over his shoulder. Now he's got authority, he's got discipline, he's got patience, but he's also got dedication and commitment. He is really coming into his own as a driver, and he's going to be a real asset to any manufacturer, any race team, any sponsor who wants to take him to the big show. He could be the missing link in the chain. They're not going to spray the bubbly because, of course, they've got a sprint race to come later, so they don't want their overalls to get wet. Or at least René Lammers is being told that maybe we should. They've got some pictures to take. Well, they don't want to spray it because, of course, there is a sprint race later. They don't want to stink the overalls out before we get back under race conditions later. So they keep it nice and calm. But don't worry, this afternoon after the sprint race, when they've got a bit of an overnight to come, I'm sure we'll get busy with the fizzy again. So we've got the rookies podium coming up straight away, and that's going to be a return to the rostrum for Lammers and Powell. And joining them on the rostrum is going to be the Belgian, Ian Eichmans, another talented member of a racing family. His father Wim, of course, runs the Eichmans GP team in the karting world. And he himself had a fantastic driving career that took him to the Indy 500 in the 90s. So wonderful to continue the family tradition on for him and the family as well. Hello to everybody at the racewear operation in Belgium as well, the family business. So here comes Ian Eichmans. There was a time when we've worried that he may not ever get out of the world of karting. He may never get to enjoy his journey in single-seaters, but we are delighted to say that's no longer the case. He deserves his chance to go up the single-seater ladder. He's got amazing speed and talent. Alex Powell back to the podium again, this time on the other side as the second best rookie. So there remains an American on the podium, and there remains an MP on the podium. Now there's going to be a second one, as the rookie winner is the Dutchman René Lammers. Led in the early stages, lost out to James Zagotzi, but he's still the first rookie home, and there's plenty more chances for him over the course of this afternoon to get another chance for a win-in. So the trophies come to the competitors on the rostrum. And I should point out that there's no national anthem for the rookies podium, because under FIA regulation, the national anthem is only ever given to the to the overall podium, I should say, rather than the rookie podium. So anybody wondering what's happened to the Dutch national anthem, that's an FIA regulation. It's only the official podium that gets the national anthem played on the rostrum. So, congratulations then to Ian Eichmans, to Alex Powell and to René Lammers, the rookie top three. But many times this year, all three of them will be bidding for a race victory overall. And I'm sure they'll be pushing for it again in this afternoon's sprint race. And then, of course, race 2 tomorrow. Plenty still to do here at Le Castellet on the Circuit Paul Ricard, where so many great drivers have done the business. I like that. René Lammers picked up the bottle. They looked at each other and went, no, we'll do it later. And I'm sure they will. The sprint race is coming up, folks. But thank you for joining us for the first EuroCup-3 race of the 2026 campaign here at Circuit Paul Ricard. From me, Jake Sanson, from my colleague Alex Garcia, and from everybody at the Kill Eye Agency and here in the paddock for the Epic Championships. That was the first race. We've got the sprint race coming up this afternoon. Don't go too far away.